Did you know there are over 6,000 Greek islands? According to the Greek Tourist Association, that's the count. And with this big number, Greece uses geographic groupings to help categorize and identify where each of these special places can be found. The most popular island groupings are probably the Cyclades or the Ionian Islands. However, there are also the Saronic Islands that are south of Athens, those found in the Gulf of Patras, and those in the Gulf of Corinth, the Dodecanese Islands, which includes Laris and Kos and others. We've visited at least a couple islands in each of these groupings. And with our visits a few weeks ago to Samos and Fornoi, we include the eastern Sporade Islands among those we've visited. And now, as we depart her northwest point of land, we can include Crete as well among the island groups we have been fortunate enough to visit. Watch our last 3 episodes, which cover some of the wonderful diversity Crete has to offer. In this episode, we move on to additional areas we have yet to explore as we visit the island of Kythira, which is considered part of the southern Ionian island group, and then on to Elafonisos, a small island off the Peloponneses Peninsula. Hi, I'm Karen, and my husband is Tom. Welcome to LifeFourPointZero, where we share our experiences of living aboard Ceros, our 44-foot sailboat, while we travel together to new and exciting destinations. What's with the name 4.0, you ask? Well, we both enjoyed careers in the software industry, so thinking about life in iterations or phases, well, versions if you will, came natural to us.
Karen's going out to swim on the anchor.
Our Life 1.0 represents our young lives before we met. In Life 2.0, we met and quickly realized we shared a passion for outdoor explorations. This version takes us through dating, including our first experience sailing together, and to our eventual marriage. During Life 3.0, we had, raised, and launched our 2 children. This includes a period of about 14 months when we lived aboard the Laia, our previous sailboat, while we explored the eastern seaboard of the U.S. and the Caribbean islands while homeschooling.
We are anchored in Castos.
Life 4.0 finds us taking an early retirement so we can travel and explore while we have the health and energy to do this in the way that we want. There is only one go at this thing called life. Make the most of it. We knew that the crossing from Crete to Kythira could be particularly tricky because of the competing weather patterns in this part of the Mediterranean. Though we saw strong northeast winds in the forecast, we didn't see any storms or rapidly changing wind strength or direction, so we moved ahead with our plans for departure. We rigged up our storm jib to have it on hand, and we were immediately thankful to have done that. The winds were strong and just off our nose all morning, which made for a bumpy ride. Look at the size of some of these swells, which are always a little hard to capture adequately. Up ahead of us is Kythira. It's probably about 2 miles away. There's a lighthouse on the end of it. This is about halfway to the bigger island of Kythira. We left Crete this morning at about 8:30 or 9, and it's now almost noon. It's been a bumpy ride today, but we have our storm jib up, and we're doing pretty good on our boat speed, probably averaging 5 or 5.5 knots. Sometimes we pick up speed nicely, but then we get slammed by the waves and get slowed down significantly. We were happy to get into the lee of Kythira, the small island south of Kythira, for a few minutes of calm waters and less intense winds.
So this is sort of the western side of
dive boats or maybe fishing boats over here. And then they're just puny in comparison to the tall cliffs. And then we're probably going to get pounded by wind here in a second. The harbor entrance for Kythira is tucked below the southwest corner of the island, so once we had cover from Kythira, we would be home free. There is an outer harbor here, which is very deep. While it isn't practical to anchor there, it does keep the close-in harbor protected from sea swells that would otherwise curve around and rock the boats, especially with such a blow going on outside. We tucked in next to a high rock wall in line with several other cruising boats, and it felt like we might be back in an area that was a whole lot more heavily traveled than we had seen recently. After a full day of sailing, we were ready to head ashore. The following day was going to be perfect weather to cross over to the Peloponnese Peninsula, so we would just have one night here. And doesn't every Greek island have a high hilltop town with a fortress and darling streets? We never tire of these. Each is unique and fun to explore. With the town sitting nestled in the saddle of this hilltop, it reminded us some of the Scala at Astypalaia in the Dodecanese island group. Okay, so we are leaving Kythira this morning, and this is where we had dinner last night, up in the hilltop town up there, the Chora. There's a castle and with a citadel up there, and here's the darling town with a lighthouse on an island right in the center of two bays, and a monastery up in the hills there. Really nice town, a lot more than we expected, an island that was supposed to be a little bit out of the way. But we're going to loop around the island, go on the west side of it, and go up to Peloponnese Peninsula. So yeah, next adventure.
So we just noticed this really interesting cave up on the cliff there. Sort of looks natural, but usually you see them closer to the water. But really deep cave in there. Very interesting. And in the distance over there is the Elafonisos sort of peninsula, part of the mainland of Peloponnesos. And we're having a nice sail here. We got 10 knots of wind, doing about 6 to 7 knots through the water. So that's awfully nice. So much better than yesterday. Crashing and banging, going up windward to get from Crete up to Kythira. So one thing we need to keep a watch out for here is this passage between, here's Kythira and here's Elafonisos and the rest of the Peloponneses Peninsula. And there's a lot of ship traffic that comes in here. They call it Steno Elafoniso. So you can see some of the AIS targets here. One there, a couple here that are coming through with more data to show them as larger freighters. These other ones could be cargo ships or freighters, just that the AIS data hasn't come through fully. You can see more over here. And we heard a lot of talk on the radio when we were coming up here yesterday, getting closer. So you can see all this traffic. Nobody's right in the Narrows right now, but could be when we enter that area. So all these green ship symbols are all coming through from AIS. So AIS has been super helpful for us to know what to expect. I can click on the symbol and it tells me the ship name, Ocean Trader. It's going 10.9 knots. Closest point of approach is 1.3 nautical miles. Now looking at additional data, it says it's a cargo ship. Gives me its heading, if it's turning, its rate of turn, its destination. Usually these are abbreviated so they can be kind of hard to understand. but very helpful information. So we'll be watching out for that as we go through the Steno. Trying to zoom in here into the Steno Elafonisos kind of narrows here in about an hour. All right, as it turns out, our crossing of this narrows, the Steno Elafonisos area was not too bad. We just have one ship down there that passed in front of us, and it's kind of all about timing here, but we didn't really have, we didn't really have much traffic otherwise. Really pretty much no traffic. There's a couple targets on AIS way down there, and our destination is just 5 miles ahead here. It's supposed to be a beautiful beach area, so we're looking forward to doing a little swimming. It's been a not too windy and quite hot day, so we're looking forward to getting in the water and cooling down. Sunset going on, and this is a nice little spot where we have the bay that we're at, and then there's an isthmus there, and another bay on the other side, and nice beaches on both sides. So early in the day this was really crowded, lots of people on the beach on their sunbeds and swimming in the water, and the evening is very, very peaceful here. Very nice. We get a little breeze coming in from the south. Down over there, and it's pointing us out the bay, which is kind of helpful, because one criticism people have of this anchorage is that the ships out there that are passing by, the wake that they generate rolls into the bay here, and if you're sideways to the wake, it rolls the boat a lot. So with our bow pointed out, that takes care of that. So very nice evening here. Beautiful sunset to enjoy. We had a nice evening, anchored out at Elafonisos, and we're joined by a lot of sailboats. I'm really surprised. This one over here actually has an American flag. Did get a chance to talk to them. They're really Americans, or just flying the flag for another purpose. Registering their boat in the US but living in Europe kind of thing. But great spot. Obviously very visited by people from land, but nice spot. Good swimming and very refreshing. And we had a nice walk up the hill here yesterday evening to watch the sunset along with a lot of other people. And you get wakes like this as the boats go by. Not a huge deal, but it knocks boats around a little bit in the anchorage. So that's a private yacht ahead of us, I'm assuming, but we got a tanker of some type way out there, and we got a break bulk ship there, and another smaller tanker of sorts in the distance there, and that one looks like it could be a military ship, and then that one way down there was a car carrier. Good place to stop along the southern Peloponnesos Peninsula here, Elafonisos Harbor. A few charter boats in there, so there must be a charter base nearby. Yeah, it's got a spout or something to it. There we go.
Cool.
Dolphin maybe, or
I don't know.
shark?
Too big. Too big. It's so different.
Yeah.
He's just sort of sitting at the surface like bubbling.
Yeah.
I tell you, everybody's standing in a line for the waterslide. You can come on over. We can take the roller coaster. And you know everybody's looking for a ride in the waterslide. Waterslide. It's getting kind of crazy up in here. Got the DJ playing music, everybody wants to hear, yeah. It's getting kind of crazy up in here. Everybody wants to ride in the water slide. Baby, if you're looking for some crazy, I tell you, everybody's standing in a line for the water slide. You can come on over. We can take the roller coaster. And you know everybody's looking for a ride in the water slide. Water slide.
Porto Kayio, a simple harbor that made for a perfect stop on the way west. It had everything we needed. This nice hike to the overlook with the cooling breeze, a refreshing snorkel earlier in the afternoon, and a big enough village to have fresh produce. You can see boat after boat navigate around this headland as they tuck in for the night, on their way west like us, or quite possibly heading east toward the Aegean.
This morning's task was to send Tom up the mast. So he's up at the second spreaders right now, and he's tightening the stays, the inner stays that go from one spreader to the mast. So he's already done the lower ones, and he's retaped all the cotter pins, checked out the rigging. It should be something you do once a year. This was a brand new boat, so we did it obviously at the beginning. We've been up the mast for a few different things, mostly when we damaged our code 0 and had to deal with the halyard, but this is really the first time we've spent a lot of time really checking the rigging and looking over everything. So I sent him up to the first spreader. He hung out there for a while with all of his little tools, like he was in a timeout, and then I sent him up to the second spreader. So we always work it out so that there's 2 halyards holding him. So we have extra halyards now, which is great. So we have one halyard running here. It's this white and green line here, and it's running all the way back to our electric winch, which is really helpful because I've cranked him up before, and that is exhausting. And then our backup is over there, so I just pull the backup through the stopper. So this is the primary halyard that I'm pulling them up on, and the secondary is going up through a stopper up here. So I just pull this tight after I take them up a little bit, and then I pull this one tight, and when I let them down I'll do the same. So let off a little bit of one, then let off the slack of the other. So then he'll be safely back on the deck.
If you enjoyed this, please subscribe to our channel and click on the bell to get notified of new videos. With our projects behind us, we set off for the short trip around the tip of this leg of Peloponnesos, which is called Mani Peninsula. We'll be in search of underground wonders yet again. Be sure to join us, as there will be some pretty remarkable sights.